Welcome to week 11 of Explore the Bible. Today we start in the book of Micah. Micah is an 8th century, end of the 8th century, so we're talking about the low 700s into the high 600s, where he was a prophet in the southern kingdom, prophesied to Judah, not to Israel, like we saw Hosea did. This week Micah's in the kingdom that's made up of the tribe of Judah, right? That's where he is, and after the Assyrians have taken the northern kingdom captive, they have gone away, and so now it's just the southern kingdoms where we kind of describe that. All right. Before we dive into Micah chapter 3, be sure and subscribe to our channel. Hit the little notification bell so you'll know on Monday morning when the videos come out. Like the video, we appreciate it when you do that. Share it with somebody else. If you've got questions or thoughts or answers or whatever, put that in the comment section. So let's look at Micah chapter 3. Then I said, "Now listen, leaders of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel, aren't you supposed to know what is just? You hate good and love evil. You tear off people's skin and strip their flesh from their bones. You eat the flesh of my people after you strip their skin from them and break their bones. You chop them up like flesh for the cooking pot, like meat in a cauldron. Then they will cry out to the Lord, but he will not answer them. He will hide his face from them at that time because of the crimes they have committed." Woo! Just jump deep into Micah right here, right? He talks about the leaders, and you see the language that he's using. I mean, he's describing them as cannibals. Now, I don't think that's what was going on. I don't think he's being literal here. Cannibalism was practiced by some religious leaders. Other religious leaders, Baal and others, practiced some child sacrifice, and then sometimes there was some practice of cannibalism. You don't see that often in Israel, and certainly not among the priests and stuff. I think here he's using the language to shock them in the depth of how they are using people as if they were animals, right? So, and he's talking to the leaders of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel. You're supposed to know what is just. You're the leaders. You're supposed to know the right thing to do and how you should treat people. But you hate good and love evil. Boy, strong words, aren't they? For the religious and the political leaders to hate good and love evil. You tear off people's skin. You strip their flesh. You eat the flesh of my people. You drop them like flesh in the cooking pot. You are destroying these people's lives, and they're just nothing to you. They're just a product to you. You're not being the leaders you're supposed to be. You're not being just the way you're supposed to be. You're not loving good like you are. You're loving evil. All you want is for yourself, and you will use people and do with them whatever you want, and then throw their bones on a pile when you're done. It's in essence what he says. Right? It says they will cry out to the Lord, but he won't answer them. These leaders will cry out, but God's not going to hear you. Right? He'll hide his face from them because of the crimes they have committed, the way they have treated. Sometimes they think we've got a right to this because we're the religious leaders. And the Lord says, no, I'm not listening to that. Right? This is what the Lord says concerning the prophets who lead my people astray. Now, he uses the word prophets kind of generously here, right? People who claim to be prophets who are leading the people astray, because true prophets lead people back to the Lord. But here we have prophets that are leading people astray. And look at some of the things he says, who proclaim peace when they have food to sink their teeth into, but declare war against the one who puts nothing in their mouths. Therefore it will be night for you without visions. It will grow dark for you without divination. The sun will set on these prophets, and the daylight will turn black over them. Then the seers will be ashamed, and the diviners disappointed. They will all cover their mouths, because there will be no answer from God. He says, you are proclaiming peace in the good times. Hey, it's all good. And then when it's bad, you say, we got to go to war. Your prophecy is strictly based on the circumstances and your own personal desire to win, to be taken care of, right? We need to be careful that we don't sometimes do the same thing. That when things are going well, then we think, boy, the Lord is really blessing us. And when things are going bad, we think, well, who do we need to go kill? Right? Who do we need to go to war with? And we see political leaders do this all the time. War kind of becomes the way to get yourself out of trouble. Sometimes they think that, right? And often we think just because it's good, God must be happy, which is clearly not true, right? He says, this is what you do. This is how you prophesy. He says, look, here's what's going to happen. These false prophets based solely on circumstance, not hearing from God at all. He says, it's going to be night for you. You're not going to have visions. You're not going to have any insight. Now, you know what may have happened is they had a vision that the Lord gave them, but then they interpreted it the way they wanted to. That may have been happening. Some of it may have just been they kind of made up their visions, created. He says, it's fixing to go dark for you. You're not going to see anything. You're not going to have any insight at all. And the sun is going to set, and the daylight's going to turn black, and the seers are going to be ashamed, and the diviners disappointed, and they're going to cover their mouths because there's not going to be an answer from God. The Lord's not going to speak to you or through you at all. Boy, here's a great warning to us to not attribute things to the Lord that the Lord has not said. Do not blame things on the Lord has not done. Be careful, right? That we don't fall into that. He says, as for me, now Micah, as for me, however, I am filled with power by the Spirit of the Lord, with justice and courage, to proclaim to Jacob his rebellion and to Israel his sin. Micah says, unlike these other prophets, unlike these guys, these claim to be prophets, right, that look at circumstances, I am filled by the Spirit of the Lord. And I have justice and courage. I'm going to proclaim rebellion and sin. I'm going to tell you what's real. You know, I often say that one thing we think of the prophet is foretelling, right, that he's going to tell the future, which that is a portion of what a prophet does. But I like a different word about the main work that a prophet does is what we might call forthtelling. Not foretelling, but forthtelling. He is telling you what's happening right now and what the Lord thinks about it. In essence, to say the main role that a prophet has is to tell you what God thinks about what you're doing. And that's a whole lot scarier than just hearing the future. Here's what God thinks about what you're doing, how you're living your life. And man, that's certainly what happens here. Micah says, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what's happening, what you're doing, and what the result of that will be. And oftentimes when you honestly and truly see that for what it is, I don't need some vision of the future to tell you what's going to be in your future. This is what's going to happen. Listen to this, leaders of the house of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert everything that is right, who build Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with injustice. Her leaders issue rulings for a bribe. Her priests teach for payment, and her prophets practice divination for silver. Yet they lean on the Lord, saying, isn't the Lord among us? No disaster will overtake us. Therefore, because of you, Zion will be plowed like a field. Jerusalem will become ruins, and the temple's mountain will be a high thicket. You see all the list of the sin from the leaders, right? And especially the religious leaders, right? But they abhor justice. They pervert everything that is right. They build Zion with bloodshed. They build Jerusalem with injustice. They're taking advantage of everything. They're stealing from people so that they can build their own little kingdoms. They take those things that are good and they twist and pervert them. They hate justice. They don't want justice. They want right. They want right for me, not justice for all. Right? They don't believe in that. And then they issue rulings for a bribe. You buy your justice, right? The priests teach for payment. You pay, and I'll say whatever you want me to say, right? The prophets say, you give me enough money, I'll prophesy for anybody to your good, always to your good, right? Man, you see this? Okay, listen. We sometimes get so overwhelmed with our own narcissism where we think we're kind of the only people that have ever lived, and we live in the worst times that anybody's ever lived through. And we need to realize that there have been literally billions of people over millions or thousands of years who have lived through horrific, sinful times. It doesn't mean that ours aren't that bad, but it does mean ours are not unique. And we need to understand that God carries out his justice in time. He offers forgiveness in this moment. Today's the day of salvation. We also need to recognize that the Lord is not just going to let things pass. Just because you're getting away with it today doesn't mean he hasn't seen it, and doesn't mean he won't judge it. And here's one of the things that hits hard. These people that are doing all these terrible things lean on the Lord, saying, the Lord's among us. No disaster will overtake us. We're on God's on our side. We're good. But he says, no, you're going to be plowed under. The city will be a city of ruins. The Temple Mount will have brush growing on top of it. There won't be anything there. This is the truth about what's going on in Jerusalem, in Judah. This is what's going to happen there. But boy, it is true for us always. The Lord sees, the Lord knows, and the Lord will judge. That's for sure. Thanks for watching. I hope it's helped. God bless you. Appreciate you, especially you teachers. God bless you. Be sure and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with others. We appreciate that as always. And comment. Let us know what you're thinking, questions that you have. All right, we'll see you next time.